I'll tell you the story. This is relevant to Gimel Tammuz. Gimel Tammuz is going to be next week, Monday night. So really, Gimel Tammuz was the day in 1927 that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, who had been imprisoned and sentenced to death for defying the the orders of Stalin, the prevailing spirit of atheism in Russia, and he taught Torah. He taught children Torah, and in fact, there were people that came to the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe and said to him that, "Why are you risking your life and the life of your pupils in order to teach Jewish children Torah? That is against what you're doing is a sin. It's against the Torah. You're not allowed to do that. You're supposed to give your life only in order to not worship idols. If someone comes and says, bow down to this cross or something, you're supposed to give your life rather than do it. Not supposed to do it. Or to have forbidden sexual relationships. If someone says, have this forbidden, or I'll kill you. Or if somebody puts a gun in your hand and says, kill this Jew, or I'll kill you, you're supposed to say, kill me. But there's nowhere in the Torah does it say you're supposed to give your life for teaching Jewish children Torah. And the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe said, I'm willing to lose this world, I'll get killed, and lose the world to come. Lose my portion in the world to come, but Jewish children are going to learn the Torah. Jewish children, I don't care what happens to me. Not in this world, not in the next. Jewish children are going to learn Torah. And sure enough, they caught him, and they sentenced him to death. And miraculously, a couple of weeks later, he got out of prison. A little bit less than a month, he got out of prison. Okay, so all the time that he was in prison, he writes that he heard from his cell that they were taking people out of their cells. They were calling out a name, and the person would cry and scream, and then they would hear a shot, and they would be quiet. And the terrible things that were, they tortured him when he was in prison, and they put him in a narrow room that was up to his knees or whatever, was mud, and there was crawlers on the walls, and they beat him. In any case, so they said, okay, we've been given orders to free you. They said that they brought him into a room, and he saw on the table was written, first of all, death, and it was crossed out. And then it was written 10 years exile, and that was crossed out. Nyat was written. And then it was written 3 years in exile. And that's what he was supposed to get, 3 years in exile. So they said, okay, we're allowing you to leave the prison, and you can go home to your prison, because the prison was right where he lived. It was in Leningrad. So he said that you can go home and be with your family for 6 hours, and then you have to take a train and go to this place called Kostromar. So the Rebbe said, if I do what you say, when am I going to arrive in Kostromar? So they said, on Shabbat. So he said, I'm staying. I'm staying in prison. I'm not leaving prison. They said that the Rebbe knew that they had arranged this, that I guess the ones who released him the ones who put him into prison were Jews. And some of them were even Chabad Chassidim that had left Judaism. They became part of what's called the Yevtsektia movement, the anti-Jewish movement. These were Jews that were opposed, and they became communists, and they were all like murderers. They were all terrible. They murdered a lot of people. And they hated the Rebbe. They wanted him to get killed, but they couldn't murder without permission. They had the permission. And they wanted to murder the Rebbe just so desperately. They wanted to murder him. And finally, so the Rebbe got out. So it must have been that one of them arranged that okay, if he's going to get out, at least we'll make it that he got out, and he's going to travel on Shabbat. So the Rebbe said, I'm not leaving. I'll stay here on Shabbat. So one of them said, if you stay here, then your release is going to be negated. You're going to have to, so he says, I don't care what happens to me. I'm not going to travel on Shabbat. That's what the Rebbe said. The previous Rebbe. And the Rebbe explained that it really doesn't make any sense what he did, because every second there that he was there, his life was definitely in immediate danger. And to save your life, you're allowed to transgress the Shabbat. Not only that, he wasn't really transgressing the Shabbat. He would go on this train before Shabbat. It was Thursday or Thursday night, I guess it was like Friday morning. He would get on the on the train. It wasn't Shabbat yet. And the train was like what's called higher than 10 tefachim. So it could be that technically he really wasn't going over the limit. You're not supposed to go more than like 1 mile or something like that on Shabbat. You can't go outside of a certain boundary, a certain amount. And he wasn't really doing it. The train was taking him and he was technically above. So all of these things, they were permission that the Rebbe could have done it. He said, but the world doesn't know about these permissions. If I do that, that's going to be a sign that Judaism is weaker than the world. And we have to show that Judaism is stronger than the whole world. That the laws of nature cannot in any way weaken the laws of the Torah. Because they came from the same source, right? So the Rebbe said, I'm staying. So he did stay, and he stayed in prison on Shabbat. He could have been home. He could have been home with his family for 6 months. Not on Shabbat. He wouldn't be home. He would be traveling. But he stayed in the prison on Shabbat, and he only got out afterwards. But he got out then on Sunday. On Sunday, he went home for the 6 hours. Okay. So he said he went home for 6 hours. And when he came to the train to go to this city of exile, I think he had to pay his own way. In any case, but all the people heard that the Rebbe was there and that the Rebbe was going to be on the train, and they all came out to meet him. I don't know how many people that were there, 100. I didn't read how many people there were. 100 people for sure were there, right? 100 people. Okay, these people, let's say there's 150 people, because 1/3 of them were probably spies anyway. So the reason that the Rebbe was put into prison was because he defied the government. So before, when he got on the train, he was standing a little bit higher than everyone, and he gave a speech. And this speech was basically the same speech that his father had given. And the speech says like this, that no one can influence the Torah and the commandments. No one can have a say in how we're going to educate our children. We have to give our lives for Torah and the commandments. Al tigu b'mashiachai, do not touch my anointed ones. That's the children. We have to be willing to sacrifice everything for the sake of Torah and commandments. And I'm not speaking just to the religious Jews. I'm not just talking about to the Chabad Jews or to the religious Jews. I'm talking about anyone who's just called a Jew. Said, my freedom getting out, right, is for everybody, for all the Jewish people. So he was telling the people to do the exact same thing that he was put into prison for. To that degree of defiance that he had. And that degree of defiance was really the beginning of the miracle. So in a way, the holiday that we Chabad celebrate, it should be on the 30th day of Sivan. That's when he got the news that he was freed. And he refused to leave. But the news that he got was freed. So I think that the reason we don't celebrate it is because we're not celebrating self-sacrifice. We're not celebrating what we do. We're celebrating what God did. The same thing with Purim. They won the battles on Purim. The day after they won the battles, same thing with Hanukkah. Right after the battle was finished, that's when we start to celebrate. On the 25th, it says the 25th day of Kislev, that's when we celebrate. Right. Okay, so that's the story is that we have self-sacrifice, and it's a thing that's inside of us. But the big celebration is when God reacts, and God will react, and we'll have big miracles, bigger than going out of Egypt, bigger than even the fall of the Iron Curtain. And those two examples, I mean, the Iron Curtain was a good example how there could be a revolution and freeing the Jews with nobody getting hurt. No one getting hurt. But in the future, everyone will benefit. The whole world will benefit. Everyone will feel and reveal all of the potential for good that's inside of each and every person. And those people that hate good and they don't want to live in the world as good, so God will give them their wish and they'll take them out of the world. Have a good day with Mashiach now. Have a good Shabbos. Thank you very much. God bless you all. See you on Sunday, 8:15.